Buckle up. You are listening to Musicians and Beyond with Lawhorn and Sarabian, our special multi-part series, Under the Covers with Ernie Cefalu. And I'm really looking forward to having... What the hell is going on? Mark, what is this? An emergency? Mark, are you and Ernie behind this? Because if you are, you guys have some explaining.
It's all good stuff, John. It's all good stuff. You need to sit back, relax, and listen to what's about to happen here. So we've been sitting here and we've been doing Under the Covers. And so we have some breaking news right here. You know, we have a designed set of shows we were planning on doing. John, come back in here. John, get back in here.
Thank you. Thanks for having
me
back.
We have had a set list of how we were going to do the show, but we came across an opportunity to have a gentleman come in and sit in studio with our guest, Ernie Cefalu, Ivor Levene, who is from Goldmine Magazine.
Wait a second. Ivor Levene?
Ivor Levene.
The writer?
The assistant editor, columnist, writer, music historian from Goldmine Magazine.
Okay, so him with Ernie Cefalu.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Together in the studio. Probably the number one resource for music collectibles, has done a 20-page series, probably the biggest layout they've ever done on any of their guests or any one of their columns. And Ivor has put together one of the top programs here, and it's regarding what we're doing under the covers. And it's regarding Ernie Cefalu is the centerpiece of that and all of his body of work. So they have released a limited series, collectible edition, along with their 20-page series. So,
you know, let's go to the studio and see what Ivor and Ernie have to say.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think everyone at home is going to enjoy it because it not only explores what we've been talking about, but they go a little bit, you know, onto these different branches of the tree, so to speak. Yeah. And Ivor brings a different perspective. And you still get to keep the storyteller, Ernie Cefalu, in the loop.
And you know what I like to say? They're going under the covers.
Oh, boy.
Cool. Let's check it out. I love Goldmine Magazine. I love Goldmine. It's a great magazine.
I bought things from them. How about you?
Me too.
Yeah.
I love them. Let's check it out.
You know, I think that it's a great opportunity for all of us, you know, to talk about this thing because I guess it's doing really well. And, you know, we're hoping that they're going to want us to make more prints because they're selling pretty fast. I guess two of the 10 are already sold out, have been sold out. I think it's Aerosmith and the Rolling Stones.
Awesome.
So I'm hoping that they, you know, a lot of times when you print stuff like that, they overrun it, you know. So if they print 1,000 or something, they'll print like 1,200 or 1,500 just because it takes 2 minutes. And, you know, I mean, rather than set it up again, it's always better to have about a 5% more. Ivor?
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
Chill out.
Well, I thought you were frozen in time there for a minute.
No, I'm not frozen in time.
Hey, Ivor and John's partner Mark couldn't make it, but you know, John will definitely be able to handle us and what we need to talk about. He's really great. So we were just saying that, you know, that I guess the magazine is selling pretty well. And we're, you know, I think that this opportunity to do with Musicians and Beyond. And, you know, it's really funny because Bob Inglesiepen was a big fan of your show.
Of my show?
Of your show, yeah, a musician, because he's a musician as well,
okay,
as well as a computer guy and stuff. Well, Ivor too. Ivor plays bass, and a really good bass player, you know. But he's a better writer, you know. So
obviously, he's not a very good judge of musicianship.
Really? Do you think you're a better musician than you are a writer?
No. I'm a hack.
No, you're not a hack. You're not a hack.
How would you know? You've never seen me.
I have. I've seen you gig when you put stuff online. I've seen it. You were on there with that band there, that guitar thing. What was it? That camp, that music camp that you did. And there was you playing, and then there was a couple of videos of you gigging with some other guys.
That was when I played with Deep Purple.
Right, exactly. Well, whatever. I mean, you know, you're a good musician, but you're a great writer. And, you know, I think that I was telling John, I think this would be a great opportunity for all of us because, you know, it's getting some buzz, you know, and you know, I'm hoping that they want us to do more, you know, but again, you know, John, Ivor, this whole thing with Goldmine is his baby. I mean, from the writing to pitching it, I had nothing to do with any of that. So I want to just sort of talk a little bit about stuff. And, I'm sure Ivor has some things to say. And that's kind of where we are. And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we want to do is make it a win-win-win situation. I mean, we'll get, Goldmine Magazine out there to our listeners. We'll get Pacific Eye and Air, and you guys do the same, and we can try to network it and see. And any ideas, I mean, we're open to everything. So anything, to help each other out is perfect.
It's like a girlfriend I had in high school once. All right.
You shared her with everybody?
It sounds, yeah. She was, problem was she was everybody's first girlfriend. So,
okay. All right.
You get what you can. What can I tell you?
Every school had one of those, Ernie.
Yeah.
So
John, tell me about what you guys do.
All right. So we have a podcast. We started about a year ago. And, just to give you a little bit of my background, I have loved music forever. My best friend from junior high school happens to be Pat Badger, the bass player for Extreme. So he took me on tour for 30 years, a couple weeks here, a few weeks there. And I just go and, like personal assistant stuff, I guess you could call it, but got all the perks of it. Tried playing, the guitar, absolutely terrible. But I love music, so I always wanted to do something. So, talking with Patrick over the years, and, I really enjoyed it. And I don't like getting in front of crowds, but I love all of the stuff that has to do with this. So, Mark's another music lover, and we got talking. I said, you know what? We have enough connections. Let's see if we can do something just as a hobby. And we started it. And then it blew up. We're in 30 something countries. We have, quite a few streams in the thousands now. And, we've had some big names. So we got all these people and everyone's just been networking. We had, we were busy, and the timing of this, like Ernie's big on timing, and he keeps saying timing's everything. Timing's everything. Well, when we connected with Ernie, the timing couldn't have been better because he was just finishing up a project. And we were just finishing up. We had a whole bunch of the contestants from The Voice that were using us as a platform. Then we had talked, and I said, shit, this Voice is over. Yeah, let's take on another project. I started looking into him. I'm like, wow, this is a great story. I even told him, I said, you should have a friggin' documentary about you. And then
next,
yeah. Well, Mark and I had talked to Ernie about that. We would like to be involved somehow. The story's unbelievable. And Ernie kept talking about you in all of our conversations in the magazine and in the connections you guys have. So I think it's a great, trio that we got here.
Yeah. He's
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's got, I always like to tell my editor that when I interview one rock star, I'm talking to one guy. If you talk to Ernie, you're essentially interviewing 30 rock stars at the same time.
Correct.
Well, I'm very flattered and honored, that both of you feel that way. And Ivor and I, met about 6 years ago at the LA at the Forest Lawn Museum show, and he was doing an article for LA Beat magazine, and we became friends. We bonded right away, and I had no idea that he was doing this. Not really. We had talked about doing a book after we met, and he did the interview for LA Beat. We talked about doing a book, and Bob Inglesiepen and I had already started doing the graphics on it, and we didn't do any of the writing. So Ivor's, the whole thing worked out where he was going to do all the writing for the book, and he started interviewing, rock stars, started interviewing managers and producers like Bob Ezrin, and that's been going on for what, Ivor, about 5 years. No,
6, 7 years. I don't know. I lost track of
time, man.
So Ivor, this is a proud moment for you. Then 7 years in the making, and then it's out there now. I bought one. I hope it was one of the first ones because every day I would go on a couple of times because I wanted to get number one. I actually emailed your people at Goldmine, and they got back to whatever. But I said, I'd love to get a low number. And they said, try back in a couple of days, So I tried back and finally got through and placed the order. And hopefully I was one of your first customers, but I'm excited to get it.
He wrote a great article. It's really good.
I'm lucky. I've got probably the best editor in the business, Pat Prince. He takes what essentially is just a bunch of words on a page and makes art out of it. And it's really smart the way he's marketed this, because originally I thought, you would just get a random copy. Like if you ordered it online, you had no control over what print you were going to get. And he took it and made it so you could specify the exact print you wanted, which is cool. So we can see, who's selling out.
Yeah,
So we can
that's
see
great.
the Rolling Stones and Aerosmith gone.
Yeah. Well, he's been really, really open. I mean, I think I had mentioned to you and Mark that Ivor had gone through, and I secondarily, but mainly him, went through some real gyrations getting this thing to print. I mean, because there was a lot of issues about, whether we were talking bad about Greg Braun and using his magazine as a platform to get back at him. And the thing that I love about the article, forget about it's me. Okay. When I read it, it was, yeah, it's me, but the way he surprised me and the way he put it together, leaves it open to the reader to make their own decision. It isn't like, well, this guy, when I would talk about it, it was me. When Craig Braun talked about it, it was him, and John Pache, it's him, and Mick Jagger. But nobody ever really put all those comments and all those directions in one article, in one place. And the way he did it was really, really strategic and clever because he left it up to the reader. He didn't draw one thing or another. And it's really only a small part of the 20-page article. It's only about the Rolling Stones thing. It's all the other stuff. It goes unchallenged. We did it. We had, at one point, his editor felt that nobody could have done that many album covers. He wanted a discography. So we came into, and, there's no way he was going to do this because nobody could have done that. Not one person. Right, Ivor? I mean, I don't want to take, why don't you tell him? Because it happened to you.
No, well, that's essentially what did happen. Like as we started getting into this and we were in the proofreading stages, my editor said, I got to verify this. There's no way anybody could have done more than 200 album covers. Which is funny because the Grammys, I just learned on the weekend, are giving another friend of mine a Lifetime Achievement Grammy, Henry Diltz, for having done over 200 albums.
Yeah, and he was the guy that mainly did Woodstock. If you're not familiar with Henry Diltz, I mean, he's done a lot of live stuff, outdoor. And not, I remember, I was telling Ivor, I remember him or his agent reaching out to us at Pacific Pioneer, but we didn't really do a lot of that kind of photography. Our photography was more studio photography, tabletop, or, a group in the studio in a situation. We didn't really do a whole lot of stuff, but I remember, his name from back in the day in the 70s. I mean, he was really, he was right there with all the bands, especially the Doors. I mean, he was very close with them. And,
Still is, yeah.
Yeah. So, but, I mean, the gyrations that Ivor and I went through to get this thing to print were pretty amazing. And I mean, I got to really hand it to him. He did a great job. I mean, I was when I read it the first time, I laughed, I cried, I mean, it was all those emotions, and then realizing that it's about me is very humbling. It really is. I mean, I never really thought about it the way he saw it, I mean, and when we started talking about doing the book, he started interviewing all these different acts and people. And so, we planned to use it for the book, and I'm sure, Ivor, you didn't use all of it, but you used some choice pieces and really sort of gives a lot of validation to what he wrote, and it's 20 pages. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know how the hell, and the way he ended it, I'm not going to ruin the ending for you, John, but the way he ended it, it was perfect. I couldn't have done it better. It was as perfect as you and Mark coming up with Under the Covers. I mean, because we were talking, Ivor, about a name for this episodic thing we're going to do, and I was thinking Between the Covers, kind of like what we were doing with the book. And when they said Under the Covers, it was like, wow, that's great. It's almost like a National Enquirer. You're going to learn the dirt. And there really isn't any dirt. But I mean, it was just great because it's under the covers. It's the under backstory that you and I, Ivor, have been championing for quite a while now.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it's just it needed to be told. And anybody that had that kind of information that didn't tell the story, in my mind, would just be criminal, just to not tell the story. Ernie's got the info. I have the info. There's going to be a book. There's going to be a documentary. This is just the first step.
Yeah. And we want to leverage the equity that we get, the episode things that we're going to do with Musicians and Beyond. the Ernie's Corner that I do every Saturday. All those things are kind of linking together to promote the book and then the documentary. I mean, it may just stop at the book. I don't know. I mean,
Nah.
there's plenty of stories, you know, and a documentary would be cool. And I'm all for it, you know, but I know one thing. I know that whatever I do, Ivor's going to do with me, because he's, you know, I mean, nobody understands it. Nobody ever understood it the way he did it. I mean, I was totally not expecting the way you wrote that. And he wouldn't share it with me. He sent me this file that was so small that when I blew it up, it was like, looked like bird crap everywhere, you know, all the little flea shit, you know, and I couldn't read it. And you know, he wouldn't send it to me because he said, I want you to read it, you know, in the magazine. I want to be there when you read it. And when I honestly, Ivor, and I don't think I ever told you this, I never expected it to be the way you wrote it. Never. It was so, because I was concerned. I was thinking, well, what if this guy gets uptight, or what if those people get up? You didn't do any of that. You left it totally open. And the other thing that he's really good at, John, is doing the due diligence, to have the evidence. You know, he'd make a great attorney. You know, he's got all the evidence. No. I mean, when I said something about this, he go, oh no, look, I've got this, and he shared with me. He's got this email from like 5 years ago, and this guy said that, and you know, and he so he can back up. And I'm sure you had to do that with your editor. Pretty much everything that he's saying. I mean, you know, let's think about it. Here's a national magazine with a huge following and a readership. You can't make mistakes. You can't just go fly off the handle, because especially, I mean, I've seen it going on to some of these Stones blog sites and other rock band sites, and there are hardcore fans, man, that challenge everything, you know? And so for Goldmine to really put their neck on the chopping block, so to speak, with taking a chance. I mean, John, you and I talked about this. Ivor and I know it. This is a 2 or 3 firsts for Goldmine Magazine. You can see behind me, most of the you know, the covers that they do are photographic. So they've taken a big risk to do graphic. They've also done a big risk in giving a 20-page article to somebody. The other slipcase cover has, 15 different images on it. They've never done anything like that, you know, so it's a big thing for them too. And Ivor, I don't know whether you've seen there, I've had a half a dozen comments on how great it is that they put a graphic on the front cover. You know, I mean, there were a half a dozen of people saying, oh, this is really great. What a change. And so people understand it, people realize it, you know, and that's nice. That's nice when that happens.
Well, that was all you. I mean, you know, we sort of discussed it, but it was really, you know,
well, you gave me a lot of, come on, you gave me a lot of, how many different layouts did we do for that front cover? There must have been 15. I do one, and he go, no, change this, no, you know, put this guy, take Tony Orlando out and put this guy in. And, you know, I mean, there's plenty of room. I guess that's one of the nice things about what we've got, is we've got a lot of variety. So we're not really stuck with, you know, we're not a one-trick pony. We've got, you know, 3 things that everybody knows, and the rest nobody knows and nobody cares. And, you know, thank God for a guy like Ivor that put it into words where everybody can understand it, even me. And
I can't wait to get the magazine.
Yeah,
can't wait.
But you know, the little bit that I've had in dealings with doing movie posters, and actually there was a guy named Paul Pompian who was a producer. He did when Burning Bed, remember, with Farrah Fawcett. He did that, and he had a production company, Paul Pompian Productions, and he did a bunch of TV movies. He would take headlines out of newspapers. There was a guy that raped a girl in Central Park, and then they put him on trial. I forget what, but he did a movie on that, like TV movie of the week kind of thing. He did a bunch of those, and we did a lot of the titles and things. But that industry is a crazy industry to itself, you know, and it would be great to have, you know, somebody. And I think that was one of the big questions that Ivor had with these guys at Bulletproof was, you know, you guys are musicians, you have a recording studio, you have a record company, but what do you know about documentaries? So, and there is a documentary that I saw that I'll share with you, John, and Mark, and Ivor. I was watching Turner Movie Classics, and they had this hour documentary, and I didn't change the channel before it came on, and it was a guy who did logos. a very famous guy from the 50s, the 40s and 50s. I think he did the CBS logo. It wasn't Saul Bass. And it caught my interest right away, the way they had done it. And it's a perfect template for a format. When we do this talking, it would be a perfect thing to do, because it was basically him talking about all this stuff that he had done, and they'd have inserts and stuff like that. It's kind of like what you did with, Musicians and Beyond. It's kind of what like Joyce does with, Ernie's Corner. And it was very interesting. I mean, it was an hour long, and, I was familiar with the guy's work, but I never knew who it was. It wasn't with Pushpin Studios, but it was that era. Melton Glazer and Saul Bass and people like that, my heroes. And this guy was amazing, and the documentary was riveting. So, there are plenty of things. And there's also some scenes in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where the movie goes from the movie to stills, and it goes from color to sepia. And it's telling the story with the music and these stills, and then it goes back into live action from the still. The still then becomes it was really great the way that was done. So there are a lot of things that I think that we can use to, figure out how to do this and make it compelling, because those, we're on our way, and, I think that the Goldmine Magazine and what Ivor has done is going to be a huge corner block in that. And then there'll be Musicians Beyond, there'll be Ernie's Corner, there'll be, Saturday Block Party and whatever else we do. But, I think we're, and again, I'm speaking for me, Ivor. I'd like you to share a little bit of your thoughts about that, but I think we're well on our way,
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree. I don't have anything to add to that, really.
come on, you're a writer. You got to add something.
It's you know what? I mean, first of all, we told the story of 6 albums. There's, 240 something to go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories there.
Yeah.
In my mind, this is going to be a recurring piece in Goldmine. It'll be almost a column. And I've seen a lot of lesser documentaries. Right,
Yeah.
we could make something really good out of this.
Yeah.
I know we could. Right.
Yeah.
There's
And,
a lot
go
there's
ahead.
a lot of garbage. There's tons of garbage out there. Music-related documentaries. There's some really good ones, and this could be one of those.
I think for a documentary, talking about a documentary, it'd be a lot like what happened with Goldmine. Goldmine never did anything like this before. There's really never been a documentary about album cover design, and there may be about album cover design, just like there's album cover design books out there that just show album covers. But I think the bigger story is if you look at the whole thing, these people that were doing all this rock and roll stuff were also doing work for Nestle and Kraft and Coca-Cola. And so I think that there's a story that we can tell that none of the other people that have album cover art books, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ivor, but I don't think there's anybody out there that's done a book where they show both.
No.
Because they pretty much concentrate on that. And ever since I was in college and went to New York, I never wanted to do one thing. If you can become really good at one thing, and then when it goes away, you go away too. You become history. It's very easy to become history. We've talked about that before. I mean, you do something great, and then you live on that, and make a career out of that. And I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to be, you're Ernie Cefalu or Pacific Pioneer, the guys that did the album covers. Yeah, we did the album covers, but look what we did for Coca-Cola. Look what we did for Nestle for 30 years. Look at all this other cool stuff that is educational. So we're actually like these things that we do, Goldmine, Musicians Beyond, Block Party. It's educating as well as entertaining, and that's the key. If we add that element to it, it's going to make it really different, and it's going to make it very interesting. Just like this Goldmine article, I've read it 3 or 4 times now, and not just because it's me, it's just because it's really good. I mean, it's really, really good. And I knew you were good, Ivor, but you really, with this one, you've sort of stepped up your game. You put yourself at another level. And I guess I understand that because Pacific Pioneer did the same thing. Without Alice Cooper, without the Rolling Stones, without Jesus Christ Superstar, we would have just been another company. but we were smart enough to leverage the equity that we had in what we had done, and had people like Shep Gordon and Alice and Bob Ezrin and people like that really, Black Oak, Arkansas, Butch Stone, they just kept pushing us out there, kept giving us work because they believed in us. And that's, I love Ivor for that. He believes in me more than I believe in myself. And that's a true statement. He understands like nobody else has ever understood. And I've spent a lot of time telling people, but nobody understands it the way he does. And, to me, it's like me finding Bonnie, 56 years ago, I found her and we found each other, and we're stronger today than we were then. Ivor has a similar situation with his wife, Susan. When you find that special thing and you're not smart enough to really embrace it and make it part of who you are and what you do, then shame on you. People like Ivor, people like you, John, people like Joyce Conroy, they don't come along every day. They really don't. They come into your lives, and it's like the Celestine prophecy. I'm always talking about that book. If you haven't read it, you should read it, because it's about people paths crossing, and one person is receiving, the other one's giving, and vice versa. And those kind of relationships don't happen a lot in life. I'm 77. There have been very few times that I can think of that were as powerful as this. The Smithsonian show was a good one. But, that was to a music fan audience, and there was a lot of spillover. It's like running an ad. You're appealing to a very small percentage of the people that are getting that publication. When we do things like this, Goldmine Magazine is 100% of the target audience. Musicians and beyond, 100% of the target audience. Joyce Conroy, because she's great. I don't know whether you watch Saturday Block Party, but she has a ability to educate. Everything she talks about on her show, every piece of music she plays, she knows the history. She knows the players. She knows where they went after they left that group. And Ivor, you've kind of done that too. You have that. And John, I think your love for music, you and Mark, you guys understand that. And that's why you're so important, to me. And hopefully everybody else that reads or hears what we do and sees what we're doing. It's all part of a process that is going to get us to the end goal, which is, the book, the documentary, selling artwork, it's all there. So
well, it's super interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, people like you and Ivor and Joyce, you're making it very possible. You're taking what's old and making it new again. You guys are doing it. I'm helping, but you guys have the reach. Taking what's old and making it new again. And that's the beautiful thing about what we've done, what I've done. It's always going to be new again to the next generation that discovers it. So, that's the beautiful thing about music.
Well, that's why I think it's important too that you guys somehow get this documentary done, because people 200 years from now have to know this.
Yeah.
It can't get lost. It's like,
no,
it's important.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the guys at Bulletproof, their whole thing is, hey man, you're the missing link. You're the missing link that needs to connect this and this, and I never really thought about it that way, but there was what I call the golden age of custom album packaging, interactive packaging, where it does more than just take the record out of the sleeve and put it on a player. There's a whole experience that comes with that music that helps further the music. And I've always looked at it that way. And I call it the golden age of custom album packaging, interactive album packaging, whatever you want to do, call it. But that lasted about 14 years. And it's still, I see what people post on Facebook for different acts like Alice Cooper, Burton Cummings. It's always a lot of the stuff that we did, because the newer stuff, maybe the music isn't as good, or the packaging isn't as good, or it isn't as clever, or, whatever. But, it's a whole different world right now. And there'll always be room. I watched an interview once with Ted Turner when he bought Cartoon Network, because we did a lot of work with Cartoon Network and all the Johnny Quest stuff. And anyway, this interviewer said to Ted Turner, you've made it, you've lost it, you made it, you've lost it. What would you say is the smartest thing that you ever did? And he said, without any reservation, buying Cartoon Network, because people love nostalgia. doing what I'm doing. It's I'm sorry, Cartoon Network, but moreover Turner Movie Classics, because nobody really put any value on those old films. And then he comes along and buys them for next to nothing and made an entire industry out of that. And he said people love nostalgia, and it's really true. It's really true. And especially if there's something that's exciting, because not only is it nostalgia for us, but there's music attached to it. Famous music, famous musicians, and the packaging reflects that and leverages that equity. So, I think that's, a thing that, we're all doing. And I know that I'm excited about it. No, look, Ivor put up the covers. Yeah, John, there's the one cover is the slipcase cover. And it's got what, Ivor, 15 different images on it?
Yeah, 4 by 16, I think.
Yeah, because there's
20.
one in each corner.
Yeah.
It's really it's again, they've never done, Goldmine has never done anything like this. And for me, that's a real plus, because it makes a difference. It stands out, and hopefully the editor will be so excited he'll want to do a follow-up. I know Ivor's ready. I'm ready. We got plenty of content. That's not the problem.
Nope.
Yeah. But it's a really exciting last few weeks. I made a bunch of foo bars that Ivor had to correct me on, because I get too anxious. I put the marketing hat on, and sometimes it's the wrong time to put the marketing hat on, but I think we got through it well. And, with his guidance, I think it's going to do really, really well. I think it's just now starting, and it's exciting. And doing this show, with you, John, is really going to help further that. So,
I'm excited, and I'm actually honored that I'm a little piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. Well, you're a big piece. You're a big piece. Ivor's a huge piece.
I'm just a little guy. You guys are.
No, it's in back to the timing thing. You came along at the right time. It wasn't too early and it wasn't too late. It's like the Three Bears, man. This one's just right. And Musicians and Beyond is there just at the right time. And I think that I think it's gonna, like I said, I think it's gonna help all of us. So
it's amazing how these things work out. When I met Ernie, I had only written 2 things, I think. I was like, no background, nothing. Yeah. And it led to a lot of stuff. So without Ernie, I probably wouldn't be at Goldmine.
Well, without Ivor, I wouldn't have gotten Goldmine, and a lot of the other, I wouldn't have gotten LAB. Those magazines really help. Those, when you Google my name, that LA Beat's right there. It's and the article's really good. And like I said, that kind of got us started in a friendship that's really become very, very strong. And she's like my brother, man. The guy really understands. Nobody's ever understood it the way he does. And I've met a lot of people, and I've, had some articles, and I'm not new to this, but, he gets it. He gets it. He's a little paranoid, but he gets it. But only paranoid because I'm not. It's like Bonnie. She balances me out, man. Otherwise, I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for her, I'd be living in a cardboard box somewhere in an alley, with nothing. She's really, you need those kind of people in your life. Ivor's one of those kind of people in my life, and John, you and Mark have become that. And so is Joyce with Saturday Block Party. It's really great. I'm very excited about all this. And, I hope that the viewers really enjoy it as well. I know I did. Now I'll keep on reading it over and over again, because it's really great. I'll be able to recite it back to you verbatim, pretty soon here, but Bonnie goes, "Are you reading that story about you again?" Yeah, yeah, she'll get up, because I'll wait till she goes to sleep and I'll bring it out, and she'll get up and go, "Are you reading that again?"
She read it?
Oh yeah, she loves it. She loves it.
Okay.
It's really, really great, Ivor. I think it's one of the best things you've ever written that I've read. Not because it's about me, because it's really well written and it's captivating. And John, I think when you get your copy, you'll agree. For a 20-page article, it flows really well. And the Rolling Stones thing, which is kind of the major, I guess, focus on the debate here of who did what is only a very small part of it, and Ivor pointed that out to me not long ago, that, hey man, that's, it's only one little piece of a bigger story, and he's right. I mean, it's a big story, and I've never had a story that big before. And like I said, in one place, with the first part of it being, not drawing any conclusions or pointing any fingers, it leaves it up to you, which I think is a real art all into itself, because it's so easy to take sides, especially if you're friends. And he believes in it as much as I do, so he wants to tell it the way. And that's what surprised me, Ivor, because I would have written it totally different. I would have totally did it different, man. But you did it in a way that was very eloquent and very objective and informative. And I think those are key elements into making something that's compelling and that you want to read. You've captured. You have.
Yeah, well, that's all I ever aim for, is to inform, to maybe get a little humor in there, tell a story. And
humor.
I mean, I agree. I think it is the best thing I've ever written, and not just because I wrote it. It's just it's a very compelling story. Yeah. So it's not me. It's the story.
Yeah, but you told it in a compelling way and an informative way, and not picking sides. I was expecting you to pick sides, and who would get all pissed off and come out, but you didn't. You didn't. And
no,
you told it like it was. You told it like it was, and that's just great.
Yeah, you're right, because that's exactly the way it is. There's no sides to take.
Yeah,
this is how it happened, and there were a lot of people involved.
But the other thing is that what I was saying about all of it in one place, when you read about it, usually it's one person's opinion, and they're drawing a conclusion. They're pointing a finger, and that's always how it's been. Because this guy will say something over here, and that guy says something over there, and I'll say something over here, and we're all trying to make win over the reader, or who's listening, the listener. And you could have done that. That's what I would have done. But you and the article probably would not have run, because your editor would have spotted it right away. I mean, so that was, I think, the biggest surprise for me, aside from the fact that we got the covers and, it's a 20-page article with a lot of stuff. You did it.
Listen, when you've got Shep Gordon and Alice Cooper speaking for you, you don't need to speak. I didn't need to say anything. They said it.
Yeah. And he kept telling me, John, when this thing drops, there's not going to be any question about anything, anymore. And he's right. I mean, I love the fact that you leave it up to the reader. I mean, I can't get over that, because it would have not been what I would have done, and the article would have never run, and, I'd have slipped off into oblivion, so, but, you did it, and you did a great job. So,
well, thanks.
And John, I appreciate you giving us the time to talk about it.
Oh, no,
this will be a first. We haven't done this anywhere else. So except with each other.
That's great.
I have a kid that I work with back in 1970, when I did Jesus Christ Superstar. I was at an agency on Madison Avenue called Norman Levitt, and he worked there with me. And I lost track of him. He became a professional football kicker. He played for Pittsburgh or whatever, and I had lost track. And he said he's got a small design studio and stuff. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we reconnected on Facebook. And he had, when the agency went out of business that we were working at, he was there, and he helped the owner sort of take everything down and all that stuff. And he had the original stuff that I did for Jesus Christ Superstar. And he sent it to me, and because he found me on Facebook, and then we've been friends ever since. Well, I have a Jazz on Grass poster somewhere, and I could probably get to it, but it's a pain in the ass. He's got one that he's shooting for me.
Oh,
and
cool.
Then I'll send that to you. You'll have that. You got the Garden of Eden logo, right?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Okay. Well, we can talk about different situations and stuff that went on in the production of this, starting with, I could see somebody at Rolling Stone magazine reading this and going, hey, man, this guy, Ivor, he's a really good writer. We should have him write something for us.
Or I would tell them no.
another magazine. It doesn't have to be Rolling Stone. It could be some other magazine that is, there are plenty of them all out there, and your publisher owns most of them. Your
Well, you
publisher
know what?
at Goldmine, he owns Goldmine and about 30 other music magazines.
Rolling Stone had their chance. I will never write for Rolling Stone.
No, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. If they called me and offered me a ton of money today, I would say no.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, I'm a big believer in loyalty, and I am a writer for Goldmine, and I will always only be a writer for Goldmine.
That's great. Well, see, that's something that we can talk about. There are plenty of things that we can talk about, including how we've gone through 5 or 6 years to get to here. There was plenty that happened, from us doing the radio shows and stuff together. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff. And John, if you and Mark look at this and you realize that you want to make more out of it, we're both into it. So, we can.
Like Ivor said, this is your story. I just want to be the platform to put it out there, and I'd like to put it out there the best that I can to your liking.
Well, I like the fact that it's kind of non-scripted. We're just shooting from the hip, and it's spontaneous, and I think people will like that. I think the interaction is what makes it interesting. Where we hear what Mark has to say, we hear what John has to say, we hear what Ivor has to say, what I have to say, and I think that exchange, if people like. And because I actually said to Ivor on Friday, I said, well, let's get together and you and we'll rehearse, And he said, what are you going to rehearse? We already know what we're doing. What are you going to do? You don't have to rehearse, So, I mean, he's right. I like the spontaneous part of it and also further it. It's, so, and I think that Goldmine would like that. It would be really interesting to get like Pat to say something, but maybe he won't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's something that, he might be interested in. When Ivor came to me with this idea, it was so different than everything else we did. I don't know. That's up to you, Ivor. He's your editor. You're the one. But I mean, I could see how this could involve a couple other people if we wanted to. Somebody that does, it's something that you might want to offer up, if Rolling Stone and Aerosmith is sold out, and there's only 20 of each, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 200 of the slipcase covers. So, and that one's doing really well too. So, hopefully, in a week or two, they'll be excited and want to do more or whatever. And maybe that's when you mentioned to him, hey, Ernie and I did this thing with Musicians and Beyond. And it's really great because he can talk about Goldmine Magazine and it's his audience.
Yeah.
And it's different than the one that he's doing, and you can leverage, equity. I mean, I'm a big equity leveraging guy. You got to, today you have to yell and scream. You can't whisper. People's attention spans are way too short. And, I tell my clients that you want to do something, you got to yell it. You got to yell it. You got to keep pounding them in the head with. You got to reach out there and grab them, start punching them so they remember you. Because it's easy. It's just boom, 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 boom. And, if you can catch somebody for a few minutes, you're doing well.
You know what? In print, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more subtle and it lasts forever.
Yeah. I think this is great. I think what we've talked about, is good. I think it interacts. Man, he's a man of few words, but when he writes, he's many, many words.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. They cut his article down, too. How much did they cut down of it, Ivor?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was 13,000 words and they cut it down to like 4, something like that.
Really? So, but the good news there, John, is that when it goes online, it'll be the whole article.
Oh, cool.
And that's another thing that we can boast. You got the magazine, but you didn't get the whole story.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be aired on the internet as it's coming up. And that'll be about a month, right? You said a month or two later. They don't do it right away, right?
6 weeks, I think.
It's actually a great marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. I'm glad you said that because every time I say that to Ivor, he says, take that goddamn hat off.
I put the
put on the art hat, damn it. So, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean,
for me, the ultimate goal is to sell more magazines.
Yeah. And get your name out there. And same with me. I mean, get the story out there. That's why I'm so willing to do these things because I'm 77, man. I mean, if I live another 10 years, that's going to be great. I mean, if I can live more than that, I'd like to live another 100 years. But, the only problem with living, I had an aunt that was 103. And it's great to live to be old. But the bummer is, and the ironic thing that life plays on you is you watch all the people you love go, and you're there. And she was at 93. She didn't know who we were. She was healthy, but she didn't know who she was half the time. She had, I mean, it just, life is a funny thing. And I think it's there to be enjoyed as long as you enjoy it. And once you stop enjoying it, it's a downhill slide from there. People tell me all the time, oh man, you don't look 77. Well, I don't feel 77, but I am. And sometimes it shocks me, it really does. I'm like, fuck, 77. Are you kidding me? God, that's old. I remember being 14 and I had my next door neighbor, Donnie Spallone, who was 27, and he had a car and he shaved and he smoked and he had girlfriends, and it was awesome. And now I'm like 3 times older than that. And it's like, oh man, not so cool. So, but anyway, it keeps us young. I don't want to hog the mic.
Well, too late for that.
Yeah, I know, huh? I know.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep under wraps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we take this moment to bring you a special broadcast. This thing is happening, and we've got the guys that did it, and that's not really being done anywhere else. Ivor and I have been talking about doing something like this for about 2 or 3 weeks now. And for some reason, it kept putting off. He couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. We didn't want to do it together. And all of a sudden, you came along and this happened. And here we are. And all that stuff happened for a reason. The reason why it didn't happen before, because we were just going to talk about it and then he was going to record it and put it on Facebook. And that was what the plan was. Yep. So now we can put it in a lot more places than that. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, I think that we are onto something here. I really do. As I put the marketing hat back on, I mean, we've got a good percentage with Goldmine. We got 100% of the audience. With your podcast, we have 100% of the audience. It's appealing to those people. That's a hard thing to do as a marketer. 100%, even to have 20% of your market in whatever you do, whether it's print or video or whatever, that's a big thing. They boast that, and that was the most compelling thing for me about Goldmine, aside from the fact that it was Ivor writing it, it was a story about me and my company, was the fact that there's no spillage. There's nobody that isn't a fan or a collector, and so for me, I mean, that never happened. It's never happened for me in 52 years of advertising and marketing and promotion and graphics. That has never happened before until now. And that's key. That's really key. I mean, it's hard to believe for me. And I keep pinching myself. I get up every morning and I wonder what day it is. And then I wonder what I had for dinner last night. And then I pinch myself to make sure I'm still alive. So
timing. So yeah, the under the covers, the way it's set up is kind of a nice model to use for your documentary.
Yeah.
And so Ivor, what we did is we started when he was a kid, where he went to school, what he did as a kid, blah, 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 and kind of blocked it. And now he had, he had met Bonnie and stole her from his friend. And
and then now I'm going to New York, and then coming back here. And hey, who's going to be in it, what it's going to look like, what angle it's going to be shot at. And that's kind of what we did here, Ivor. They started by putting together a timeline and gave it to me. And then I sort of filled it in and made it flow a little bit better, like you did with the article. It flows. That was the other thing that was so impressive to me. Over 20 pages, it flows. It's not choppy. Because Ivor said to me at one point, well, the editors, usually he gets what I write and then he chops it and cuts it up. And so he told the editor when he gave it to him, he said, if you're going to cut this up, cut things out, don't chop things in half and, leave it hanging and stuff. So, and I think he took that, he took that comment really well, because it's not choppy. Yeah.
Yeah. I told him, if he's going to chop things, chop an entire album out.
Yeah.
Don't take bits out of each album.
Yeah. So, and to go from 13,000 words to about 4,000 or 5,000, that's quite a chunk.
Yeah.
And he sent me, I've read the initial uncut version, the director's cut, so to speak. And it's really good. It keeps the flow and it keeps your interest. When something flows like that, people stay involved. it just does. It makes you want to see more. It makes you want to read on. It makes, I mean, it's just, that's why they do trailers for movies, So anyway, I think we've got we talked about a lot of good stuff today, and, let's plan on doing more. But I'm from Milwaukee to California to New York and back.
Excellent.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, I was born in Milwaukee. Schlitz beer. My mother worked in the Schlitz beer factory when she was, younger.
Really?
Yeah. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I got a lot of relatives in Milwaukee, and then we moved to our part of the family moved to Florida, and my dad's brother and my mom's sister moved to California. This is like 1946, right after the war, and then my dad's brother kept luring him out to California. Better weather, the building industry is booming because the war's over. Now they're building track homes like crazy. That became a big thing in the 50s. Everybody could get a home because they had all these GIs and GI loans, and so they were building track homes. And so my dad moved us out there and moved to San Jose in 1950. It's pretty crazy. Small little town. It became huge. Well, at one time, it was the fastest growing city in the country. So, and then Silicon Valley came along and just trashed it.
No, that's Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is here.
Silicon is the silicone glue. Yeah.
No,
Silicon, whatever the hell it is. My brother was one of the original 6 that left Fairchild to start into Intel.
I know. And we won't talk about the other guy that lives in Long Island.
Yeah. So, all right. Well,
Pleasure meeting you, Ivor.
Hey, you too.
Forward doing stuff with you guys in the future.
And Ivor, thank you for taking time out of your day. And John, thank you.
Thank you. And
give Mark our regards. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Bye.